Number 7, find the minimum or maximum value of each function. State the domain range of the function. So obviously we're going to have more of these on the actual test. Right here it's just one. And we want to state the min or max. Well, let's think about this. The a value is positive 1, so we know it's a regular U-shaped curve that's opening up. So if it's opening up like this, it does not have a maximum, it has a minimum, right? If it's opening up, it has a minimum. So we're going to say that the minimum, and what is the minimum value if it's opening up? Now, in this case, you'd have to find the vertex to state the minimum or maximum value. And if you view this in this equation, even though you might mistaken it, or you might be looking at it in standard form, ax squared plus bx, which there is no bx, plus c, which is 13, you could look at it in vertex form. It would look like this. Why? Because there are no parentheses around the x, so you could put parentheses around the x, and since there were no parentheses, that means that the h value was really 0 because it wasn't there. So you could write it if you want, so you could clearly see your vertex value of 0, 13. That's your vertex value. So if it's a minimum value, what is the minimum value that you're supposed to write on your answer? You're going to write y equals 13. That's your answer for that one. Technically, if you wrote the vertex, I'd give you full credit, but you could write the y is 13. That's the minimum of this parabola. Let's talk about domain and range. And in order to do that, let's do a quick sketch right here. Since this vertex is 0, 13, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, it's right there, and it's obviously opening up, right, because the a value is 1. So let's think about this. The domain of any parabola should be x equals all real numbers. So the domain is x equals, and you could go the little all real number symbol, which is like that weird looking R. Now for the range, it clearly, this is the minimum value, which was 13 on the y, right? And it's all above 13. So what kind of range value do we want to have on the answer? We want y equals greater than or equal to 13. Now I'm sorry about this sloppy mess. Let me try to clear it up here. So y is greater than or equal to 13 in this case. And here we go one more time. Y equals, no, not y equals. Y is greater than or equal to 13. Let's move on to the back side. On the back side, number 8, it's simply giving you a function, which is in standard form, and they want you to plug in -5, get your answer. Plug in -4, get your answer. Plug in -3, get your answer. I'll be honest with you guys. I kind of view this as a waste of time, especially because on tomorrow's test, we don't have a lot of time, so I don't want to waste time working on plugging in inputs and pulling out outputs. So what I'm going to focus in on is just simply looking at that equation and finding the vertex and also finding the y-intercept value. Okay, so let's find the vertex, and again, how do we do that? X equals -b over 2a. Now if we plug it in with parentheses so we don't make any mistakes, the b value happens to be 8 and the a value happens to be 2, so we end up with a -8 over 4, which ends up being a -2 as the x value of our vertex. So our x value of our vertex is -2. How do we find the y value? You simply plug it back in and work it out. So what I've done here is simply rewritten the function, but instead of x squared, I put parentheses squared. Instead of 8x, I put 8 parentheses. That way you could clearly see me plugging in the x value of -2 in there. And now I'm going to work it out. So -2 squared, that's +4. And +4 times 2, that gives me a +8. And then what do I have? I have a plus -16, because 8 times -2 is -16. And then I have the +7 at the very end. Let's combine these guys. 8 minus 16, that's a -8. And -8 plus 7, that's going to be a -1. And that's our y value for our vertex, -1. There's our vertex right there. How about the y-intercept value? How do you do a y-intercept value? You simply plug in 0 for x and solve. Okay, so let me plug in 0 for x. And as you could see there, I've rewritten the whole function, but put parentheses instead of x again, and I'm going to be plugging in 0 for x. And of course, when we work it out, 0 squared is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 8 times 0 is 0, 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 7 is 7. So our y-intercept is 7. Our y-intercept is y equals 7. The vertex was -2, -1. And I hope that helps. Let's move on. We have this one where they want us to graph. I ended up changing it and putting a negative sign in front to be your A value. So you have -1 as your A instead of +1. The reason why I asked you to change it is because the vertex is at 1, 4. And if it is opening up, the parabola would be off the graph. So that's why I told you guys to plug in a negative sign. Just make that a negative in front. That way it'll be opening down and you could actually see it. Now, we know our vertex. We could draw the axis of symmetry right through it. I apologize for it not being that nice. And you could also go to an XY table to find more coordinates. However, the A value is 1, which means we could use the pattern 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then map them over to the other side. So if I go 1, 1, I end up right there. If I go 2, 4, I end up right there. That's ugly, sorry. So all I have to do now is map these dots over to the other side. So let me go, this is 1 unit away. Let me go 1 unit away. I'm right there. Let me put my dot right there. And this one right here is 2 units away, 1, 2 from the axis of symmetry, 1, 2. So I end up with a dot right there. And now I could clearly graph my parabola. It's ugly, sorry. But that's my parabola. And I'm done graphing it. You get a point for that. You need to state the vertex. We already said the vertex was +1, +4. Okay, so that was 1, 4. That was a vertex. What else do we know? The minimum or maximum value. This is obviously a max value. Why is it a max value? Because it's opening down. And what would that max value be? It would be y equals +4, because that's the highest y value there is. The axis of symmetry is simply the x-axis, the value of x of your vertex. So this is the axis of symmetry. So we would say x equals 1. And since I'm running out of space here, I'm just going to write it over here on the side. Axis of symmetry is x equals 1. It's my axis of symmetry. And finally, the zeros. Now, what are zeros? Zeros are where the parabola crosses the x-axis. Zeros are x-intercepts. Clearly crosses right here, and it clearly crosses right there. So it crosses at -1 and at +3. So the zeros, you could say x equals -1 and +3. So those are the zeros because those are the x-intercept values. This last one on this page, we're talking about the path of a baseball. And they're using this function right here, which is -1/2, and you have, well, it's in vertex form, and it's obviously opening down, and it's a little bit wider, so it's something like that, right? And that's makes perfect sense. When you hit the baseball, you know, it goes up, it goes down. The thing is this, we're not going to do, on the test, we're not going to do this one. We're going to scratch out B, okay? I'll explain later. Let's just talk about the maximum height in feet. Well, we already know what max means, right? It's going to go up at some point, it's going to reach a max height, then it's going to come back down. What is that max height? When we're thinking about a graph, because we could see that this is in vertex form, what would that max height value be? That would be the vertex. And what would the vertex be? That vertex would be +22 on the x and +250 on the y. So what is the max height? Y equals 250.